building. And my explanation was how I thought that it was maintained and how I thought that it was owned, because that's how it was presented to me in conversations that I had. And shame on me for not looking into it further.
Well, I think for years, the building got along just fine on the income it generated, but nobody had the foresight to say, we're going to do 10 years from now, and this needs fixed and that needs fixed, and they've let it go. Everyone has let it go
That's
to a
right.
point that it's in now.
Mhm.
And that's why when we came to you 18 months ago, we said, we need some money to fix this up, or you're going to close it.
And we were shocked.
Shocked that we just came to you then, or what?
Yeah, when we first heard that, that was shocked.
So you guys thought we had enough money just to do all this?
Well, yeah, because, and here's what we're doing here in town. We assume the Kiwanis do certain things. We assume you do certain things. Okay, we falsely or whatever relied on, okay, you're doing your job, Kiwanis is doing their job, and we're not speaking together, and people are assuming that somebody comes and talks to us about it. No, we didn't know anything about this. This is all. John didn't know this.
Right.
Joyce didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. The thing is, when I got back on the town council, one of the things that the reason why I wanted to get on is start this 5-year planning, 10-year planning, 15-year planning down the road. And I agree with you 100%. So, and we've been doing cleanup work on things and trying to prepare for the new water plant. We got a new sewer construction project going. We got all these projects going, and all of a sudden, boom, hey, you need all this money to the buildings. What? What happened? Okay, so then we start looking into it and say, it looks like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, that you just had enough money to barely maintain certain things within the building, but there was never enough money set aside in case there's a major structural thing.
No forethought.
So I look at it, yeah, and I look at it and I say, okay, we've got to do something totally different to get it back to where it should be. Okay, if we're going to put in HART money and we're going to put in more money and try to grants and doing all this, then we need to look at the whole thing from top to bottom. It's not that I said anything set in stone like Tuesday and the Kiwanis got off on that, like we're going to tear down the ballpark and do this and do that, and that's a separate issue. No. We were just going to take and look at it and see what's possible in 5 years, what's possible in 10 years. And really, that's why we didn't. And now we're getting into it and say, okay, for perpetually going forward, we wanted a board to advise us. But it's set it up legally like it should be, like most towns and communities have. They have an advisory board, but the final say-so rests with the town council. Okay, and just same thing with Kiwanis. When we give Kiwanis money, they should be coming back and talking to us and saying, okay, this is what you tasked us to do. We don't have enough money to do that. Okay, then Kiwanis need to come back to town council and say, we need more money. And that's another thing. You should have looking at it through the years, whoever was on the board saying, this ain't working out. We need this money, and every year incrementally raise it up. Well, that didn't happen.
And we have increased it, 6 months ago or a year ago, we increased the rental rates on this.
But it's
not
not
an
going to get you the
exorbitant
level that
amount.
yeah.
No.
Still not
Yeah.
enough to cover. The
It's
sorry
not-
fact is, this building will never generate enough income
No,
to stand alone.
no, it won't.
So who's
No.
going to support it?
And we needed to decide what income it does generate, what it applies to, and
We just
why,
need
you
enough
know?
to make sure that everything is kept up and
And-
the bills are,
A community building is for the community, not to make money.
no.
It's a non-for-profit.
You have to have enough money though from
No.
revenue to
I
pay
agree
your
with you.
light bills.
And that's what I said in the beginning. This building will never operate on its own.
No,
And
No,
since
we know
it's going to
that.
have to be funded and
Yes.
greatly funded on a continued basis, to have it remain within the books so that it can be audited yearly and properly by state board of accounts, everything else, that town board needs to take it over and oversee it. And that way it can stay within the books and everything else. Okay. We understand that it will never make money, and in order for the community to, and in order for the, 501c needs to make some type of money in order to maintain an operating cost. It's not supposed to profit.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So to expect that whatever that we do currently, or whatever rates, it'd have to be astronomical rates that nobody would ever buy into in order to maintain a profitable repair margin. Correct, you know? So that's why we want to maintain an advisory board to assist us with it. But in order to keep it on the books and to keep track of it with State Board of Accounts and everything, especially to the level of income that it's going to take in order to continue and maintain it and put money into in the future, I think it's personally best for the town to take that portion of it over so that we do allocate funds and we ensure that the future of it is intact.
So I have a question for Alex. Is there anything that we are doing illegally as a committee?
I don't think anybody's implied
I've heard that word term used a few times.
I don't know that I've heard that.
Well, Harry just said there a little
Well,
bit
then
ago.
I've improperly used that word. And I stand corrected on that, and I shouldn't use that word. But the way that it's set up is not the right way to do it. Because it gets back to Kenny, the town owns the building.
It does, yes.
And if you look at other government bodies, they have advisory boards that advise the town council, but then the final authority rests with the town council.
So I never took it as Harry was implying that. And I know that
If I
he
did,
didn't
I
want to
apologize.
apply
I've heard the
that.
term used 2 or 3
So
times.
I
this
think,
evening.
I think what he wanted to use was improperly. We're
I
improperly
agree.
set up.
And I apologize for that, Kenny. It's a poor choice of wording, and I do that sometimes.
So
It's improper, the setup that we currently have, yes.
our wishes and thoughts were to have town funding, which comes from the ARPA, up the way it should be.
Mhm.
And then from that point, we could continue, always done, maintaining it. But the town should have a line item budget for the maintenance too.
And
Now,
then,
your argument is it's town money that's paying for it. Well, my argument is it's federal money. That's every
Now-
dime gets federal money.
It's federal money at this level. If
It's
it-
come down through
for
the
the
state,
repair.
the state gives it to the town. It's federal money. That's the only way you can look at it.
if I understand you right, and I want to be crystal clear on that, be all this money, but have no say-so.
I don't know. What would you like to see done? I
That-
mean, that's kind of been our role all along.
Yeah,
And
and
nobody's
that's,
ever came to us and say, we'd like to see this done.
that's why that's been
So-
improper.
It's improper. It's something that hadn't been done before.
It's improper, Kenny.
I mean, I agree that we
Okay,
should work together, and that's what we've been trying to do for the last year and a half.
then correct me if I'm wrong. If I rented you a house, you're coming back to me and say, I can do whatever I want with your house, and you're gonna give me money to do it.
Within reason.
But that's what you're telling this town council, is that we should give funding and do all this, but we have no say-so in that funding. Okay, and it's going to take, that means if any grants or anything like that, and then here's another thing too, and we don't have any say-so, and something's improperly done in this building, who's going to get sued? You or the town?
Well, who's gonna, I guess, depends on what it is. I mean, you would get, ultimately, you would, we probably would too. I don't know.
Yeah, say the town
You can
gets
sue
sued.
anybody for anything.
So in other words, the town gets sued for something that we had no control over. I don't see the justice in that. That's what I'm talking about.
We've been presenting things because this is what we want to do. This is what it will cost. It's not like we're saying, give us $300, $300.
Okay, then,
No. We understand where the money for the repair is going. We understand that. He's provided us quotes. He's provided us detailed things. That's not a question. Future's the question. Obviously, all that money's got, there needs to be new money in it Once it's repaired, things are going to have to expand. Money's going to have to be put aside for future repairs, all of that. That part of it is going to have to go through a line item of the town. And it's going to have to be maintained by the clerk through State Board of Accounts, make sure that everything's taken care of.
But it would be smaller amounts if you done that every year.
I don't think the fact that you guys want to take the money, that's really not needed with us, I don't think.
Okay,
The checkbook, I don't think that's.
can you point to me any other town that does it this way?
I guess I would have to question, how is this scenario any different than every county that has a county fair board? How do they operate?
I don't know, you'd have to ask Martha.
I'm sure they get money from the county, maybe from the city, I don't know. So why is our scenario any different?
It's not, we give you money.
No, we haven't given them money in the past.
Oh, okay.
Well, 5,000 a year or something to
Yeah.
help with bills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
2,500.
And to bring
But
clarity.
not to the level that we're discussing for
No,
repairs or anything.
not to that.
But Kenny, what you get around, the way I read into all this, you want us to give you money.
No, you're not giving
So-
us money.
So
You're giving this building money that
let's
you
take another
own.
look at this.
With the building which is owned by the
And we
town.
are charged with renting it out, taking care of the maintenance, blah, blah, blah. So in
Okay.
other words, you're getting our services free to manage this building.
And we have no idea what you do.
That's something we've discussed. You know, we've been coming to meetings the last year. We've been making presentations.
What happened,
We are trying to mediate there.
what happened to
Whatever you want to call it.
27 years plus before that?
I wasn't around then, Harry, just
Well,
like you.
I
wasn't.
understand.
You gotta start today.
None of us can answer the historical questions. How do you change our staff? So what we need to do is go from today forward. And I mean, what our expectations are is that we try to do something when it's done now, come to you and say, this is what we want to do. We don't
Okay.
ask you to write a blank check.
Okay, the question becomes on all this is, you don't think the town council should have authority over the money that we give you?
You do have authority.
You do have it.
But we don't have the final.
Yes, can we have? the
How
money
many
to do this
people
job?
are
Yes
on
or
your
no?
board?
You can vote on it.
Do you know?
7 or 8.
But again, well, we're getting way off hard and handy.
I think we're saying the same thing then. We're just not understanding each other.
That might be.
Town to control the money. We don't want to do that part of it. We want to write checks to everybody for this and that and everything.
You oppose us making this building to where we can use it for town hall meetings too?
I
you
think
opposed
the
to it?
building should be used as much as possible,
Okay.
whether it's rent or non-rent,
Right.
you know, doesn't matter. It's here for the people.
Maybe the Kenny, that's maybe the let's
Yeah,
let's work
need to
through
work
this to the
together.
end to see where this goes. It's our position as the town council that, like the ordinance, which in the ordinance is right here, we're not going to pass it tonight. It's just in discussion stage. That you don't believe that the town should have a board that advises the town council, and that we should fix and give you money, but we never know what's going on.
Well,
No,
first
I
of all,
I
you
don't
need
think
to
that's
get,
what he's saying. I think you're
Okay.
looking into it. Mark, if offline, would you have some input on how the fair board's operated? Could I discuss that with you?
Completely different than it was 2 years ago.
Okay, but
The current, I can give you an instance that the ball diamonds, for instance, are owned by the county. Ball diamonds up by the park, by the pool,
okay,
are owned by the county and leased to Park and Rec for $1 a year for 20 years.
And who maintains them?
Park and Rec.
Park and Rec does.
same situation we got here, I think. right?
except so they would do full maintenance. The county doesn't provide them with any funds for the maintenance.
They have a tax levy. Park and Rec has a tax levy. They have to operate.
Who
So
hires,
it is slightly different.
Who does the hiring and so
Yeah.
forth?
who owns Park and Rec? Is that still the county that owns them or the town or who determines who's,
It's their own entity.
okay.
They're their own entity.
It sounds
they
like
a
it gets a bit
nonprofit?
complicated. Would you have time offline, Mark? We'll do that offline.
Can I just add that? I do think that we're trying to say the same thing, just in a different way. And if we take out the who controls, the board has to say, or we have to say, or whatever, and just us going forward and how that can work, I think we're gonna come to a resolution on this. We could come to a resolution on this.
I think everybody here understands that we want a community building. I think everybody,
Keep saying it. We want money to do what we want to do with the village. We don't want money to do what we want to do with the village. We want to present it to you and ask you if we can do this to the building. If
But
you
that's an advisory committee.
Right.
Right? Well, then we're talking about an advisory
We want to
committee.
know which is what we are. Right.
Not currently.
Where's that email?
let's look at a few things that we do know.
Alex,
We both understand that we want it to continue as community building. We both understand that we've got to take some kind of financial control internally and control that through State Board of Accounts and our clerk. We both understand that we think we know what we want as far as an advisory board is, whether or not there's some subtleties in the difference. And we both understand now that the town owns the building. Okay? You guys may have understood that a lot longer than
Oh, yeah.
we all
We
did.
knew that up front.
So we've got a lot of common ground here, but we just got to figure out some of the little details, all right? What I'd like to do is I would like to work with Mark and or somebody else in the county to find out how they work some of those other boards, how closely related that is,
Mhm.
and how well it can work into what we want to fold and manage with the community building board and go from there. Because we can look at what you're feeling and how you're interpreting things and how you're interpreting things. But I think overall, now that we've got those few points that we can all agree on, that we can find some way to work from there.
yeah, and that's good. Maybe I'm looking at it differently from my perspective, and you are too. And thank you for that, John. The goal is to get this building fixed.
True.
The goal is to, from here on out, that it remains fixed and never becomes in this disrepair again. We understand as a town council that we can't be down here all the time looking at everything. But from our perspective, we would like Damon to come down, inspect and say, well, it needs this, and this. And then
And I'm sure they'd be happy for the help on that.
We
It's
would
not,
use those funds to do that. I
it'd
believe
be
we
another
had-
resource for
Yeah.
the.
Yeah, we usually know what's going on in the building.
Right.
From whatever source, you know.
I would like to see, and I'm just throwing that out there, but I would love to see this building rated for, in case of tornado for people. Yes. I would
That
love
has
to
been
see
our intention all along, but
Absolutely.
we was having trouble getting monies from other places to
I
do
think we
that.
could
Well,
figure
and-
out
and
though
again,
what we need.
Grant money's
altogether.
available once we know
Yes.
who's there and how we write it
We have
and
to
who owns
know.
it and everything else.
And we have to have an architect.
But
You have
aside
to
from
do
that,
before you can do
you know,
anything.
there are things that
For
that
money.
our
for
utilities could
grants.
do to assist in the repair. You know, that doesn't cost the additional contractor stuff that can help maintain. And again, could come from the town with its control
Well,
to a level. And excuse that word if that's
Yeah.
getting, you know, but I think you understand where I'm going from, where I'm coming from.
and it's like something simple, Kenny. We had exterminator was out and went around the building today. First things he said, those two out there, as you come in the door, there was two planters put on stumps.
Dumps are
Well,
bad.
they're going to be removed because that attracts bugs, and it's all that goes together. And maybe we are talking, but that's my goal to see this in the future, but we need advised on it. But I guess where the clarification on for me is you can advise us for all the things that they need, but then the final decision would rest with the town council. And I think that's maybe where we're hung up at.
Right.
Because we would approve the expenditures and the money. You could say, okay, we need this needs to be done. Okay, we can have Damon or a private contractor, whatever, look at it and say, okay, yeah, that's true, that needs to be done. And then the final check and everything would be voted upon as we voted
Right.
upon
We
expenditures
would have to
every
because
month.
we have to vote on it.
That's the
in
way
order
it
for
should
to
be
go out.
done.
Yeah,
Money,
yeah,
all the
and
money
that's the only
should
way we
run
can spend
through
money.
the
Yeah.
town.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
And too, honey, before we do anything, you as a board need to write what you would like to see in this building. When you have to hire an architect to make it right, if it's going to be.
Well, let's worry about fixing it first.
Depends on
That's
what it
you
is.
better
Yeah.
do.
Right.
I mean, if you're not gonna move bathrooms and kitchens and all that stuff, I don't know that you'd have to have an architect.
Uh,
Well,
Depends on what the
If you,
extent of
if you
the,
ask for a grant. you
to
have
repair
have
on
an
the
architect.
existing
Yeah, that's a
structure,
possibility.
no. So for the repairs on the existing structure, no. But when we talk about what we had a couple months ago, putting out the door or blowing out this wall for showers
Yeah.
or anything else, yes, you're correct.
yes.
But for what we're talking about now, the existing repair, no.
If we're going to repair it, aren't we going to do it right?
Yes, I mean, they're professional
what I thought.
contractors that he provided quotes with.
That's why, Kenny, it was important tonight to work all this out, and I've used some wrong terminology, true, and misunderstanding, but we've got to work through this because as a town, this building is important and we want to do it. Is it pains to get through all this misunderstanding and the words that we use? Yeah, it is sometimes growing pains with each other. We really haven't dealt with you that much at all. And here all of a sudden, yeah, boom, we are. Well, okay, it was a wake-up call because of the money part of it. And so we're not used to working with you. You're not used to working with us and going on, and that takes time. But the end analysis, we need an advisory board. And like I talked about before with what Gloria tried to say at the Tuesday night meeting, no, to get a planning grant, and you have input from the board has input, Kiwanis would have input and say, well, this is what, sit down, okay, what do we need? You know, what is feasible? And I'll give you a simple one, and I didn't know this tonight, but somebody gave it to us. If we would take on the fences around the whole ball diamond, if you would take them up higher and bring them in this way, we could probably get men's softball league in here. That's a simple fix to,
It's not as big as I think as it used to be. It used to be really big. but-
I was told that.
And I don't think any city
I thought we
around,
played on that
it's
field.
dropped way off, I think.
Yeah.
Columbus has maintained a pretty good one, but
Okay.
they've got a pretty big center over there.
Everybody's got cell phones now.
So I was
You got
told
something to
that,
do.
that's something simple to do is that would be part of, within this planning, okay?
I think if we put our heads together, we can come up with a lot of neat things.
Well, that's
And
been,
Gloria has
that's
something
been
else
kind of
to
our
say.
goal all along.
And then,
We just wanted to be able to do it without the town saying, get out of the way, we're going to take it over.
what we
No.
meant by that was,
She wants to talk.
yeah, go ahead.
Harry, I wanted to just give an update. I talked to Jody Comer today,
Right.
and I asked her what funding was available for our situation and what's going on here. And she said the planning grant is a maximum of 20,000 with a 10% match. And it is a outside facilitator that would come in and interview the community and talk to people out in the community, the organizations and all of that,
Right.
to help determine what would be the best use of this facility. It's not redesigning it or anything like that. It's just a study to understand what the community wants the most from this building. And then the only grant that's available for our situation with this building is a grant that's up to 500,000. It's a 10% matching grant. The town would have to confirm that they match it, and it would have to be under the understanding that it's something for the town's community, because it would be based off of the town's qualifications. She calls it something, and I can't remember, but it has to do with our poverty level, and she thought that we would automatically be granted the grant because we're on the lowest category of poverty level. So we would be guaranteed that funding.
Right.
But it is a bit of a process. And as far as any other funding, I told her our situation is that there's about $200,000 worth of repairs. Is there any money out there to just assist with repairing what we have currently? And she said, no, not as far as at the federal level or with Okra. You would have to go locally, like to your community foundations, You'd have to go to your county, things like that for that kind of funding. And so I think there is the question, and I need to let Jody know, are we treating this building as a Westport building and we can use those numbers to apply for grant funding? Or is it a township building and we need to reach out farther in the county? If it's a county building, do we need to go back to the county foundation and ask them for funding to assist with the repairs? And I think you guys had started that process from what I understand.
On the county level.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and-
with
and-
the community foundation and all of that. And then the other thing I wanted to clarify is that as far as the Westport stance, we voted several months ago to apply our ARPA funding as revenue lost. So we do no longer have the ARP funding as far as it being a federal funding. It has been applied to our budget. And so any money that we give moving forward is coming out of Westport's general budget. It's not coming out of a line item that's ARP, because we've already absorbed that into our budget as revenue lost.
Right. And Kenny, and for all of you out in the audience, I mean, between the town council and the people out in the town, sometimes it's a growing process. We're not used to you, you're not used to us. So unless we have, you should ask us questions till you get it clear as we can. Well, I'll give you an honest answer. May not like the answer, but I'll give you an honest answer to tell you why that I do what I do. Sometimes I'm using one word that I shouldn't have used and got stuck on that. That was inappropriate. Let's just say the way we're doing it is inappropriate. Quantas here moving forward, they don't need to be charged anymore, because if you do that, you're going to have to do the other two. So we want to be,
Yeah, I don't know that any of us were aware of that.
and I know Quantas is willing to do that and they've done that, but we're going to go across the board and be fair about it. If either y'all pay or none of you, because you guys are non-for-profit. This is a government building, and we, as the town council, want the non-for-profits to meet here for free. So going forward, then we'll work on the other, Kenny. Do we need an advisory board? Heck, yeah.
You already got an advisory board, so
Well,
right there.
And with your advisory board, we want people that
Does it
work.
matter if it's a 501(c)(3) or?
That I don't know.
You'd have to
I
be on
don't
the
know
town
if it could
council.
be, I don't know if the board itself can be a 501(c)(3).
I don't think so.
No, I'm saying we are.
Oh, yeah.
What difference does it make where you use us advisory committee or whether you have to create your own under the
It
town
wouldn't be a
board?
501(c) committee. And then where's
So,
that?
no, I think what he's saying, that it doesn't matter if the people from that
Oh, I see what you're saying.
committee
No, Kenny,
move
they
over
can
to the
be-
advisory board.
I'm saying, what's the difference if whether we do it, keep doing as we have, or whether you create this new committee and
No, you can be
some of us
reappointed.
might serve on it, some might, I don't know, might
Yeah.
not, I don't know.
Okay, that's a good question. What we'll do is you guys can be reappointed, and the people that don't want to be appointed, let us know what don't. But I definitely want on that committee this time, somebody from the business association, somebody from Kiwanis to give it balance, because,
How many's on the current board?
huh? How many?
How many do you have currently?
I think seven or eight. I don't think I know for sure.
But within that, so because the Kiwanis maintain the outside and the grounds and everything, they should have a seat at the table of what's going to be going on
They're
down
one of the
here.
major stakeholders. They should be
They're a
involved in everything.
stakeholder and they should have a representative too.
And
And then whatever you guys work out and you see, then you would come to the town council and say, is that acceptable?
do you understand my question, Alex? Why does it matter if we keep doing it as is versus having the committee on the town board? What's the difference?
I think, are you understanding what Ken's asking?
I think we're talking about the same
If they,
thing.
in other words, if they dissolve their 501(c),
No, I'm saying, what's the difference in us staying there versus
I
you
don't
creating
think,
your own?
I don't think the advisory committee could remain as a 501(c)(3). I think
No,
the
if it's
advisory
on your
committee,
board.
I think that the members that are on the board now could be appointed into the advisory committee, but I don't believe it can remain as a,
Do you understand what I'm saying, Alex?
John, one of
Why do we
the,
need to create this new
I-
advisory committee on the town board when we already have it right here? Is it just the
Because-
fact of dissolving this, dissolving our partnership?
You get rid of that, you get rid of a lot of knowledge.
Is that what it's all about? Well,
John, it's my
No.
understanding that currently, the way it's set up, their committee is not held to the same guidelines as a town committee. When you have an established committee that is designated by the town appoints that committee is held to the open door rules. They're required to have public meetings, they're required to respond to the community, and they're held to those standards. And I don't know that the 501c that was created
I don't think we have to do
separate
that.
from that, no, I don't think you have to do that kind of stuff. So that is one of the big differences of a town council appointed committee versus their current situation. I think the other difference is that it's my understanding the town council appointed the original committee that ran the town building here, but currently this committee is not appointed by the council. So that's the differences I see.
So I can't give you an answer because I'm not really understanding the question completely.
Ask would be, why dissolve our committee? Because all you're going to do is turn around and create another one on the town board.
No, they would
Is that
advise,
correct?
they would advise the town board, but it's like the open door and all that, there's two differences of where, explain that again to me, please.
We would
If-
have to,
If the town council appoints an advisory committee,
Which
Um,
technically it already is. It's a town council appointed committee.
not,
This
No.
one isn't.
this one isn't.
Okay.
It originally was.
It originally was.
Right.
28 years
That
ago.
was the original intention. And at the original intention, from what I can tell in the notes, Jim Parrish was very much involved. He attended those meetings and the Kiwanis were involved and they all kind of worked together. But what I understand at this point is the difference is they're working as an individual entity. They're nonprofit. They're managing the building on an individual level versus being appointed by you guys. You're trying to set an ordinance that says we will appoint the committee, and then it reverts it back to how it was set up in the 80s. That's how I understand it. And the big difference being that they'll be held to open door rules. You know, they need to appoint their meeting dates. They need to post where they're having their meetings. They need to be public invitation. I know there have been complaints in the past that the committee meetings as they're currently operated are not public. Things like that will change because if you appoint it, then we're held under those standards.
That would be the difference.
open door policy.
We've never,
When you have a
we've
meeting,
never not let anybody.
everybody should, you've never told anybody to leave or anything.
I think one of the additional differences, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gloria, is access to some of those the grant funding that are just available to municipal entities.
Right.
And with which would probably be used by the town to be the funding source for a lot of the capital expenditures that would need to be done. Right now, the 501c3 entity is not available for those because it's not a municipal entity, is my understanding. In addition, because the board is made up of some of the surrounding townships, they don't demographically qualify for some of those funding sources that would otherwise be available if it was a town-appointed ordinance created committee. I think in addition, there's some of the issues, not just with funding like a 501c3 that we're talking about today, but funding any 501c3. You want to have a really clear understanding of what their audit history is before giving large sums of money to that 501c3 entity. And one of the benefits of having, an entity that's created by ordinance, advisory or otherwise, would be to have that as a line item that is regularly audited through with the clerk treasurer's office by the state board of accounts. I think that was mentioned by John earlier and Gloria as well. So I know in addition to the transparency issues that we discussed with regard to the open door laws, there are some sort of structural differences with regard to funding sources that just make there are challenges for a 501c3 entity to meet that, to essentially be equivalent to an ordinance creating committee.
Jody had told me initially when I started talking to her about this, I said, I'm going to help the community committee write a grant. We need money to help repair, and they want me to help. And she said that all funding that the town of Westport under their name applies for has to go through me. So if we did get 200,000 from the community block grant or any of those, I would have to pay all of the money that would go into that. And I think I had mentioned that one time, I would have to have all the invoices. And it's not that I want more work. I don't want more bills to pay. But unfortunately, anything that the town is putting money into, I have to answer for. And so I have to have a clear paper trail with the audits. We have to have biannual audits at minimum. If we get federal monies of 50,000 or more, and at this point, with our wastewater, we're at like $1 million every year, we have to have annual audits. So there's a lot of supervision that goes into it. And one of the things my accountant asked me when I started talking and asking for advice on how we handle some of this is, has your finances ever been audited? And if not, then when we absorb some of that, we take a risk because we're held to a certain level of all the documentation that is required for it.
So
So
you're,
it's,
yeah, but more to this point, are you under the impression that we wouldn't appoint any of the current board to the advisory committee
I don't see the purpose.
of
I don't see the purpose of the town creating an advisory board when you already have one.
So the question I have is, are you under the impression we wouldn't appoint the people that are currently there to the committee we're talking about?
No, my question is, why do you need it to start with? Any funding or any work done here of any major, whatever you want to call it, would have to go through the town. We're not going to try to run $100,000 worth of bills through our people. No, not at all. We run our monthly bills through whatever, and we don't even really care if we do that, really. But no, that would be, it wouldn't be right for one thing.
If we gave up the votes, we would not be a 501c3, which is fine.
So would the board be interested in doing a collectively agreed upon ordinance? Meaning our officers have input as well as you all to create an ordinance that works for both sides?
I guess I'm confused on what the
what is it that you don't
big
agree
difference
to,
is
I
here
guess?
in this and what I'm talking about, because I'm confused. If the current members of the committee would be transferred to the advisory board, I don't understand what the
Well,
issue is here.
I think a lot of that goes back historically. I'm on this board. Everybody else is on this committee, I should say.
Uh-huh.
Because when this building was completed, there was an understanding that this committee would manage this building and it would never go back to the town or any other entity. Because I think historically, back in the day, when our forefathers, you might say, built this building, I'm assuming they went to the town, said, we want to build this building. And the town said, no, we don't have any money. Or no, we're not going to, whichever way it was. They didn't have any money. Okay. But the men and women that built this building took it upon themselves to go out, find materials, get money, and they scrounged around. They even got used materials in this